Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the Southern Homestead. Today we're going to be dealing with apples, all things apples. We're going to be making applesauce. I'm going to try an experiment with making blueberry applesauce. We're going to make apple butter, and then we have a special baked treat that I'll share the recipe with you later. I just got back from a week-long quilting retreat in the mountains of North Carolina, and we were able to visit an orchard in the area in Blue Ridge, Georgia, which is only about 45 minutes from where we stayed. They had so many apples, it was unbelievable. I brought back a half a bushel of Fuji apples and then 2 half pecks of ambrosia apples, and we're going to use those in our sauce making today. I'm going to do 1 batch of plain applesauce with cinnamon, and then I'm going to try a batch of blueberry applesauce. Hopefully it'll taste good. If I have enough apples, I'm going to go ahead and make some apple butter and possibly a quart or 2 of some apple pie filling. I've already got some of the apples rinsing in some water with vinegar, and I just have this half a bushel back here behind me left. And then we'll get started peeling and coring and slicing the apples. To help make this process go a little bit more smoothly, I am using my handy dandy apple slicer, corer, and peeler. Now, we haven't used it in a year. Let's hope it's still working just fine. Otherwise, this could be a very long and tedious process.
Making our way how God intended.
I have my canner set up on the stove over here behind me, and I am going to be water bathing this, but I am using my pressure canner just because it's very large and I can fit lots of pint-sized jars into the canner. I also am going to have my roaster oven set up for my large batch of applesauce, and then I'm going to do my apple butter on the stove. Fortunately, for the apple butter, I'm going to be able to leave the peels on and just have to slice it and core it, and then we'll be good to go. The first recipe I'm going to start with is my apple butter. I'm going to do this one on the stove. It takes a really long time to cook the apple butter down and get that nice dark caramel color, and I find this to work better on the stovetop. So I've measured out my apples. We need about 10 pounds of apples for this recipe. I am doubling it. I'm going to go ahead and get my apples ready. I'm just going to cut all the way around the apple, removing the core, and then I'll chop up the apple into small pieces, and into the pot it'll go.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
To the chopped apples, I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my ingredients. I have 2 cups of apple cider. I'm also going to add 1 cup of brown sugar. For the rest of my spices, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, a teaspoon of ground cloves, and a half a teaspoon of sea salt. Lastly, I'm going to add a half a cup of lemon juice. I'm going to put a lid on it and let it cook until the apples start to fall apart. Now that I have my apple butter cooking away on the stove, I'm going to go ahead and start peeling, slicing, and coring the apples for the applesauce. Well, sadly, my apple corer slicer peeler is not functioning properly. Now, it will peel the apples for me, but it will not slice or core the apples. this little attachment piece here needs to be changed out. I'll try and change it out. If that doesn't work, I'll just move on to plan B. I'll let the machine peel it for me, but then I'll have to core it and slice it myself.
Making our way how God intended. Life on the homestead recommended. When the going gets tough and you're done pretending. Life on the homestead recommended. There are no more 9 to 5 when you're living between the pines. No more struggling to get by when you're living in God's light. Whoa, that's the homestead life. Living the best life among the trees.
Success.
Life on the homestead, oh so free. Roaming the land that we created. Life on the homestead, finally made it.
My bowl is overflowing. Nothing goes to waste on the homestead. This is going to go directly to the chickens, and in return, I'll get fresh eggs.
9 to 5, when you're living between the pines. No more struggling to get by when you're living in God's light. Whoa, that's the homestead life.
It's been about an hour and the apples for the apple butter have cooked down nice and tender. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my trusty immersion blender in and blend it till smooth. To my cinnamon applesauce, I have added about 6 or 8 tablespoons of lemon juice. Then I added 3 tablespoons of ground cinnamon and about a teaspoon of nutmeg. You could adjust the amount to taste. I also put a cup of water down in the bottom of the pan, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the roaster and cover it and let it cook down. Now for the blueberry applesauce, I don't really have a recipe for this. I'm just winging it. So I'm gonna add maybe 1 to 2 cups of my frozen blueberries that we picked from the orchard this summer. I'll add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice and then maybe a 1/2 cup of raw cane sugar. Our apple butter is cooking down quite nicely. It's turning the most beautiful fall color, and it only needs maybe 15 to 20 minutes more and then it'll be ready for the canner. The cinnamon apples have cooked down nicely. I'm gonna take my immersion blender and I'll blend it up, and then I'll do a little taste test to make sure I have enough spices in there. My cinnamon applesauce is ready for the canner. I'm gonna load them into the jars using a 1/2 inch headspace, and then I'll process them in the water bath canner for 20 minutes. Now that the cinnamon applesauce is in the canner, I'm going to go ahead and blend down the blueberry applesauce. It's time for a taste test. Wow, this stuff is really good. Not too sweet. You can definitely taste the blueberry. It's delicious. The cinnamon applesauce has come out of the canner, and now it's time for me to load my jars with the blueberry applesauce. We'll get that into the canner for 20 minutes in a water bath. The blueberry applesauce is ready to come out of the canner. Perfect timing. The apple butter is ready, so I'm going to go ahead and load those up into the jar and get those into the water bath canner. Apple butter is ready. Look at that color. Isn't it beautiful? Well, good morning. I have finished canning all of my apple products, as you can see here behind me. All of them have sealed and they've been labeled, ready for the pantry shelf. I do have a few apples left, but not enough to make the apple pie filling like I had hoped, but I do have enough to make a special recipe. Today we're going to be making some apple cider donuts. The first thing I have to do is I have to take a cup of apple cider and I have to reduce it on the stove and then add some butter. So I'm going to do that first. I will share the recipe for you down in the description box below. This is not my original recipe. It's one that I found on Pinterest. While the apple cider is simmering on the stove, I'm gonna go ahead and whip together my dry ingredients. The first thing I'm gonna need is a cup of flour. And then to that, we're gonna add a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a pinch of nutmeg, a pinch of cloves, and a pinch of salt. We're also gonna need a half a teaspoon of baking soda and a half a teaspoon of baking powder. My apple cider has simmered down to about a half a cup, which is what I want. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in the 3 tablespoons of butter. And I'm just gonna mix that until it's creamy. You're gonna wanna save about a couple of tablespoons of this rendered down apple cider butter mixture for later on in the recipe. But meanwhile, go ahead and take a half a cup of that and we're gonna get our wet ingredients together. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of Greek yogurt into my stand mixer, and to that I'm gonna add 1 large egg, a 1/4 cup of pure cane sugar, and a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I'm gonna add my half cup of simmered apple cider. I'm gonna go ahead and combine my dry ingredients with my wet ingredients. You don't wanna overmix this. Now, according to the recipe, you would mix this until it's just combined and then you're ready to pipe it into the donut mold. But I'm gonna go one step further and I'm gonna grate some apple into the batter. To make things a little bit easier, I have put my batter into a Ziploc, snipped the end, and I'm gonna fill the donut molds like that. It's less mess. And that's it. They're gonna go into a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes. The donuts have just come out of the oven and it sure does smell like fall in this house. While the donuts are cooling for just a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and make the topping. I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of the reserved apple cider from earlier, and I'm gonna add another 3 tablespoons of melted butter and whisk it really well. So now I've got the butter and apple cider mixture here. I'm gonna put it into a shallow dish so that I can dip my donuts in it. And then in the dish next to it, I have some granulated sugar and cinnamon. Let's see if I can do this gracefully. I'm gonna pop one of the donuts out, very gently dip it in the butter mixture, and then dip it in the sugar and cinnamon mixture. Then I'm going to put it on a cookie rack for it to finish cooling off. Fall is my absolute favorite season, although I'm not sure if it's just for the weather or if it's for all the goodies. Thanks for joining me on the Homestead, friends. I'll see you next time.